It'll be the 1 week, just one Monday and Tuesday. All right, my friends. Here we are, having completed the Siman 253 last week, and Baruch Hashem did some review. Not that that review is enough. Please make time in your own time to review better. Nevertheless, time moves on, and we are going to be doing 254. Siman Reish and Daled, the title of which is Dine Tavshilim HaMochonim Erev Shabbos Kedei Dehigamer B'Shabbos. The laws governing foods prepared on Friday so that their cooking will be completed on Shabbos. Actually, 254 is kind of wrapping up 253. It's not really a new topic. It's more about Shehiyah, except that it addresses different types of Shehiyah, which perhaps we didn't address so fully in 253. So we start off with the halachas of a barbecue, very relevant in today's world, especially with July 4th coming up. Then we have the halachas of fruit that are edible raw. We have the halachas of bread. We have the halachas of what else? Of removing bread if it was put in by mistake. Water. So it's basically wrapping up the details of Shehiyah. Okay, so in terms of the halachas of the barbecue, the thing is that which we learned, that it's okay to put basar chai, to put raw meat. The birth of Avram Yitzchak Cohen, David Leib's grandson, and Shmuel Leib's great-grandson. Thank you very much.
Would you like to make a l'chaim?
Yes.
Which is their preferred poison?
So the point is that that which we learned, that it's okay to have basar chai, even one piece of raw meat in a cholent or in any other dish is good enough so that you don't have to worry about forbidden shehiyah, because it basically means, that the food is not going to be ready on time anyway. That only applies to meat that is in a pot or a pan. Even if it's pan roasted, meaning to say there's nothing else in it, no liquid in it, but because the pan blocks between the fire and the meat, so presumably it's not going to be ready on time. It's going to take too long. However, if it is meat directly over a flame, like on a spit, a skewer, or even, it seems very primitive, but we even discussed a case where they would actually simply put the meat down on the coals. Certainly gave it a very distinct flavor. And in all of those cases, this leniency does not apply, because it is going to get ready well and truly before the time of the meal on Friday night. So there's no reason to give that leniency. Now, if that's where it would end, that would be very simple. We could stop the halachas of the barbecue right there and say, simple. When it comes to barbecued meat, there is no heter of raw meat. It has to definitely be Kamacha ben Rusoi, according to Hananya. And according to the Chachamim, it has to be Metztamek Uraloi. Simple and straightforward. However, this was not meant to be. It was meant to be a little bit complicated. And that is because there is a discussion about some cases where it might be allowed to leave certain meats on the fire, perhaps on the fire directly, perhaps on the fire in an oven, perhaps on the fire in an oven whose top is smeared closed. It might be allowed in certain circumstances to leave certain type of meats on the fire, even though it's raw or even less than a third cooked or less than whatever Machal Ben Rusoi is. Meaning to say, the rule is, like I said, that there is no exception of raw meat, and meat has to be k'macha ben rusay. That's the rule. However, there are exceptions to that rule. There are cases that we say, no, maybe it is allowed to leave it on the fire. And that is what this shir is about. Now, before we start reading the Mechaber and the Ramah and the Alter Rebbe, I am first going to read the Gemara, which I sent out at 6:56 this evening. Today. So if you have it, you have it. And if not, you can listen as Torah Shabbal Peh goes. So this is on Shabbos Daf Yud Ches Amud Beis. And here's the Gemara. Just have to get it on my right page in my Gemara. Okay. V'hashar de Amar Mar, kol midi de kashi le zika le megalile. There are some things that the master said, I'm not sure who the master is, but somebody from the Gemara said, that something that might be damaged by the wind, a person would not uncover. It means if something is in an oven, and by opening the oven, he may damage that item, so therefore the halachas of shehiyah would not apply, the prohibitions of shehiyah would not apply, because he would not open up that oven and damage the food inside. So there are two versions of the Gemara, but let's just go straight to the second version, which is the halach. Here goes. Degadya, bein sharik, bein lo sharik, shaperdami. The meat of a kid goat, whether the oven is smeared closed or not, is okay. You're allowed to keep, the meat of a kid goat in an oven from before Shabbos, whether the oven is smeared closed or not. Smeared closed means they used to close it with some kind of cover. I don't know what the cover is made out of, metal, I guess. I don't know. And then they used to smear it closed with some kind of mud thing, which was, you would have to chisel it off. If it were dry, you could break it off and open the oven. It wasn't like a permanent thing, but it would basically seal in the heat. It would seal in the heat. So there's two ways to understand why it's permissible with this kid goat. The Rambam says that basically it's very tender meat, and therefore it's going to cook without any of your help. And the only thing you can do is burn it. That's all you could do. If you stoke the coals, you're just going to burn it. So it doesn't make a difference if it's smeared closed, it's not smeared closed. It's just going to burn it, and therefore it is permissible. There's no chance you're going to stoke it. And by the way, according to the Rambam, when he says whether it's smeared closed or not, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be in an oven at all. Smeared closed or not closed is just the different oven options. But there's another option, which is that it can be on an open pit barbecue, not like a grill, with a cover or whatever. Just an open barbecue, it's no problem. Campfire, exactly, because it's not going to, you wouldn't ruin it. The only case is if it's directly on the coals, that's different. We're going to see about that soon. Okay. Rashi, on the other hand, says that the issue with the kid goat is that because the meat is tender and it's very sensitive to temperature changes, and if it's in an oven, which is closed, and then you open it up, whether it was just closed or certainly if it was sealed closed, it was very hot, then you open it up, you let in all the cold air, it's going to ruin it. So according to Rashi, pay attention, according to Rashi, this heter is only in an oven, because the change of temperature between hot and cold, very hot and cold, in the oven would ruin this meat. But if it was outside an oven, we wouldn't apply this heter according to Rashi.
What's the svara that would be outside also? It's already uncovered?
According to the Rambam, because it's meat that cooks very easily, and stoking it is just going to burn it. Whether it's inside or outside of an oven, it's going to burn it.
I'm not familiar with stoking coals, but I'm saying with barbecue, I'm also not familiar so much. But what stoking coals is only to increase the heat, or it's to
increase
heat? Can it be to eat?
Primarily to increase it. That's what we're
It's
concerned
only
with.
sound, so he'll flip and flop to get it evenly mixed, and to get the other one also lit.
I don't know about those issues of barbecues. There may be such issues, but we haven't come across them at this point. I don't know if that's.
Stoking in order to increase heat.
Yeah, I don't know if that possibility is enough of a chashash for them to make exer. The standard chashash is that the coals are dying down. You need some extra heat. You stoke it.
So what happens with the coals is that one coal, when it's hot, it will make the next coal hot. So by flipping and turning them, you're increasing it rather than going on its own.
So let's say if I have let's say this whole thing is filled with coals. If I just lit up these coals, these would automatically light up these?
No, it's like the bottom coal will be hot and you have cold ones on top. So it's like it just gradually, the heat transfers. But by poking them, you're mixing it, It's the same with the pot of soup. You mix it.
Spread it. You spread the heat. Very good. Okay. The barcha, if it is a ram, right, which is an adult sheep, but the Mefarshim say the same applies to an adult goat or an ox for that matter. The shorik, if it is smeared closed, shaper dummy, it's okay. Why is it okay if it's smeared closed? I have to look at my notes to make sure I don't get it wrong.
At what point did we break the oven open? That was before Shabbos. This is during Shabbos?
On Shabbos, yeah, on Shabbos. You're allowed to break the oven open on Shabbos. It's a interesting halacha, by the way. Well, the question was asked just before. What does it mean smear clothes? You used to smear clothes with some kind of mud or plaster, and they used to break it open. It discusses in, I think it's Rishon Zion, why it is that it's not forbidden to break it open as stira, that you're demolishing on Shabbos. And it basically said because it's made to break open, so it's never considered like closed in any kind of permanent way. So that's why it's permissible.
Reminds me of bottle caps.
Yeah, I mean it's different because bottle caps you only open once. I mean they're closed, you open once and that's it. This is open, close, open, close. You know what I mean?
Oh, they used to do the smearing process every time or multiple times a year?
Yeah, maybe every week. I mean, whenever they were cooking that they wanted a lot of heat, they would smear clothes to keep the heat in and then break it open when they were ready to eat. Okay, so the Rambam says, Zelebrit, Avram Yitzchak ben David Leib. Amen. Okay, so again, I'm Achleikus Rambam and Rashi. We're going to see Rambam and Rashi, by the way, 3 times in this discussion. Rambam says that if it's even though it's stronger meat and tougher meat, nevertheless, the change in temperature from a sealed oven to an open oven is not good for that meat, and therefore you wouldn't do it. Rashi, on the other hand, says Chiddush. Rashi says that the point of smearing the oven closed is that it is going to remind you not to stoke. By the time you get out your chisel and your hammer and you break open that oven, you're going to remember it's Shabbos.
So when Rashi not allowed to break open the oven?
No, you're not going to forget long enough to break open an oven and stoke the coals. You're going to remember it by the time you get there. See what I'm saying?
Like a blech.
Right, but more than a blech. Is it more than a blech? I got to think about that. Is it more than a blech? Yeah, it's basically like a blech. I have in my head that it's even better than a blech. But is there anything that a blech didn't work for? Anybody remember? No, I'm not talking about for attorney. I'm talking about for shehiyah. I think a blech helped for everything. Pretty sure a blech helped for everything.
Or even the old days,
Yeah.
just covered the top of the stove.
Yeah.
Many of the stoves have like a side door. So to stoke the coals, they'd open that door to stoke them. Whereas the oven, if completely closed, you can't get to the coals.
Well, it's the same as a blech. The blech today covers the fire, and this is covering the oven. It's the same as a blech. I can't think of. I have in my head that it's better, but I don't see why it should be better.
If it was too red, you can't put on that spot.
Yeah, Chazon Ish says that. Well, I've honestly never seen a red blech. Maybe because people don't.
Have to go straight on the fire.
Yeah, I guess people just don't leave the fires on that high.
It's not, if it was directly on the fire.
Even directly on the fire, you'll die. A low flame, it just won't get red hot. A very high flame might get red hot. That's possible. So, but according to Chazon Ish, red hot would be a problem. Okay, but it's more or less like a blech. That's correct. It's more or less like a blech. It's going to remind you not to stoke. That's the point.
And that's the allowance for the Gemara to use an oven like that. So Rashi doesn't hold of the change of temperature?
Well, Rashi does in terms of the goat. By the goat, he says that's the reason why the goat is allowed, the kid goat.
Not the ram?
By the ram, it's only, by the ram, he holds that the change in temperature is not going to ruin it because it's tougher. And the only reason it's permissible is because by the time you break it open, you'll remember.
The Rambam?
Excuse me. The Rambam says that it's about the change in temperature is going to ruin even the ram.
Oh, even the ram.
Yeah. Okay. So now the Gemara continues. Now, what about Kipligi? When do they argue? Debarcha v'lo sharik. What if it is a ram? It's in an oven, and it's not sealed. Rav Ashi shori v'Rav Yirmiyah midifti asir. Rav Ashi permits it. Rav Yirmiyah of Difti forbids it. Now, why does each one hold what they hold? Well, Rav Yirmiyah midifti is simple. Rav Yirmiyah midifti says, as far as remembering, the closed door is not going to remind you. If it's sealed, it'll remind you. As far as ruining, right, the Rambam says Rashi says that the sealed door reminds you. Well, that's if it's sealed, Rav Yirmiyah says. If it's not sealed, it's not going to remind you. The Rambam said that the point of the sealing is that it's a change in temperature is going to ruin even a ram. Well, that's only if it's sealed. If it's not sealed, it's not so hot, the change in temperature is not going to ruin it. So according to Rav Yirmiyah, it is forbidden. Rav Ashi, however, permits it. So we have to understand Rav Ashi's reasoning. And the reason is that Rav Ashi says, you know what? There is a small amount of ruination. There's a better word than that. But whatever, it will get somewhat ruined, even if it's not sealed, because after all, there's a change in temperature. It's not such a significant ruination. Need a better word than ruination. It's not going to ruin it significantly, let's put it that way. It's not going to ruin it significantly. But nevertheless, Rav Ashi says people aren't going to do it, even for that small amount of damage that it'll do to the taste. Even for that reason, people are not going to do it. And another interpretation, and that's according to the reason of the Rambam. According to the Rambam, that by opening it, if it's sealed, you're going to ruin it. Rashi says even if it's not sealed, you're going to ruin it somewhat. According to Rashi, that the reason of that if it was sealed is that the sealing would remind you. Well, we can say, I think the Sefer Truma says this, that even a closed oven will remind you. Big chiddush. But listen carefully, even a closed oven will remind you. Why? Because there's something that blocks. There's a block. Normally, when the pot is on the fire, so the fire is there. It's right underneath the pot. But over here, there's something that's blocking before you get to even the food and the fire underneath it.
It wasn't something normal to do, cover the fire like that.
No, it was normal. It was normal, which is why if Yirmiyah says it's no good, it's not going to remind you. Rav Ashi says no, even though it's normal, but you still have some kind of reminder. It's like we said in the past, maybe a cover is good enough even if it's there all the time. We had that svara, which some people said. So Rav Ashi is following that svara, even though it's always there. But you still have to do something before you can do. Just like taking off the plaster, you remember by that time that maybe takes you 5 minutes. This only takes you 10 seconds. Nevertheless, that's something. That's something that might you might remember in that amount of time. It's a chiddush. I actually came across a third opinion, which I think is from the Mordechai, that says that if it's directly on the fire, according to Rav Ashi, it's going to be cooked and doesn't need to be stoked. That's a whole nother thing.
If it's on the fire.
Well, we're talking about if it's on the fire, right? Because what's Rav Ashi's reasoning? Rav Ashi says anything that is directly in the fire doesn't need to be stoked. Just like something that's machal ben rusay. There's no problem with shehiyah, because why would you stoke it? It's almost ready. Well, anything that's directly on the fire, it's getting ready so fast. Nobody's going to bother stoking it. It's fine. It's going to be fine. That's a third svara I came across.
So directly on the fire is one temperature, or it can't be like the end of the fire, the coals that are just cold out?
Yeah, I was thinking that's like above the fire, a little above or on the fire.
Let's put it this way. The Chachamim made, general guidelines. So they made guidelines for pots, they made guidelines for the fire, they made guidelines for, you know what I mean? The general guideline is once something is not in a pot, it's not an open fire, generally it doesn't need to be stoked. So you can say, well, maybe this particular case, it's at the end, it's not a big fire. Okay, they usually made broad rules. You know what I'm saying? So the general thing is, once it's on an open flame, it doesn't need to be stoked. That's what it would seem.
So I'm just asking a question.
Yeah.
If I wanted to eat now, not on Shabbos,
Yeah.
could I then transfer to a fire?
What does that mean? I don't know what you mean.
Well, because we said that like if it's either raw or third cook.
That's for shehiyah, yeah, not for
Yeah.
transferring.
No, but I'm
Can
saying,
never transfer unless it's fully cooked, of course,
but what I'm
right?
saying is that if I have very limited time, and I know that my meat's not going to cook, can I transfer them to a fire? Because then
Transfer what? I don't know what you're saying.
my meat, it's not going to cook.
Oh,
so it's not poking.
you're saying it's in a pan and you want to transfer it to a
Correct.
fire before Shabbos?
Correct.
No, why not?
So that's permissible.
That's only according to Rav Ashi. Again, Rav Ashi is the one that's lenient over here. Rav Yirmiyah says, no, it has to be in a sealed oven to be permissible. Unless it's a kid goat meat where it doesn't have to be sealed, but otherwise it has to be sealed. So it would only help you according to Rav Ashi. And by the way, it's a machlokes how to paskin about this machlokes. Rishonim, or I should say the major Rishonim passing like Rav Yirmiyah, the Rif and the Rama passing like Rav Yirmiyah, who is strict on ox or ram, large animal meat, if it's not sealed. But there are some Rishonim, not a small number, not as famous, but the Sefer Truma, the Smag, the Smak, who do pass like Rav Ashi, who is lenient. So let us finish the Gemara. Rav Ashi Deshari, according to Rav Ashi, it's permissible. What time wrote in the Brisa? Ein certain basar, batzel, ubeitza elakadeshi yitzodlemi ba'od yoyim. You're not allowed to roast meat and an onion and an egg unless it's going to be roasted from before Shabbos. So presumably it's talking about even in an oven, not just in an open flame. And according to him, once it's in an oven, what's the problem? Right? According to Rav Yirmiyah, you could say that's talking about an unsealed oven. An unsealed oven will have to, it's forbidden. The sealed oven would be permissible.
Roasted meat directly on the fire, we're saying.
Yeah, no pan in between. either on a grill or a skewer or something like that, but no pan.
It's not on the fire, meaning
Right.
no
Right.
interruption between.
No interruption. I mean, we're going to talk about literally on the coals in a minute, right now, actually. Korban Pesach, exactly. That's a good example. They put a skewer through the animal and it went into the oven. Okay, ya ba 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 ba, ya ba 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 ba. So the point is, how do we explain that according to Rav Ashi? The answer is Hasam bebisra agumri. Over there, we're talking about meat on the coals. Meat on the coals is forbidden, even according to Rav Ashi. Now, let's understand. Let's examine it one at a time. According to the Rambam, if to keep track of the opinions here, according to the Rambam, the reason why according to Rav Ashi, it was allowed to keep it in an oven that was closed but not sealed, is because there will still be some damage. Right? That's where the Rashba explained it. Following the Rambam's line of reasoning, there will be some damage to the meat when the temperature changes. Well, if it's directly on the coals, it's already so damaged by the coals. It's basically so, charred by the coals, mamish directly on the coals. You don't care to damage it any further. It's going to get damaged further, but you obviously don't care. You like charred meat. So therefore, we are concerned that you're going to stoke it. And according to the opinion of Rashi, that this whole thing is about a reminder, so Rav Ashi is lenient because even a closed door without smearing is a reminder. Well, if it's on open coals, you have no reminder at all. So therefore, it's a problem. Well, we're going to see. The Magen Avraham says that you have to wait until the coals go out, at least the top layer of coals. So it's not going to put anything out when you lift it up. That's what we're going to say. Okay, my friends. So we have basically 4 arguments here, if we can just sum it up. We have an argument about why a kid goat is different. The Rambam says because it cooks very easily, and any stoking is going to ruin it. Rashi says because the change in temperature from a smeared or even an unsmeared oven to an open oven is going to ruin it. The question of why a smeared oven is good, even for other meat, according to the Rambam, was the change in temperature. According to Rashi, is that it's going to remind you. And based on that argument, we have the 2 opinions, according to Rav Ashi, why it's permissible even in a closed oven, not smeared. According to Rashi, that it's about the reminder. Well, he holds this is enough of a reminder. According to the Rambam, that's about a change in temperature. He holds this is also a slight change in temperature that's going to ruin it a little bit. And then coming back to the coals, again, the Rambam says that it's about a change in temperature that's going to ruin it. Here, it's already ruined. And Rashi, this is about a reminder, says here, there is no reminder at all. It's an open coal situation. So those are 3 arguments. And then we have the argument about who the halacha is like. Does the halacha follow Rav Ashi, who is lenient on other types of meat in an unsealed oven? Or is the halacha like Rav Yirmiyah, who was strict in that case? Again, Rif and Rambam are strict like Rav Yirmiyah, and some other Rishonim are lenient like Rav Ashi. Okay, with that in mind, we are going to learn the Mechaber and the Ramah, and we will see that the Mechaber is basically paskening like the Rambam in all 3 areas, and the Ramah is paskening like Rashi in all 3 areas. As far as the Machlokes, whether to pasken like Rav Ashi, like Rav Yirmiyah, maybe to say about other meat in an unsealed oven, both are strict, and they forbid it. So that's the basis for the Mechaber and the Ramah. we will read them first, and then we will go to the Alter Rebbe. There's a lot of students online today. Oh, Shmuley's back. Nice to have you here. 4 students online. So we need some participation from you. It's nice that you're with us, but we'd like to hear some questions and or answers.
What page?
There you are. You spoke, Baruch Hashem. What page in the Shulchan Aruch?
Yes.
I'm actually doing the Machaber and the Ramon now, so I don't really have a standard text for that.
What Siman and Sif?
Oh, Siman 254, Sif 1. All right, here we go. Dine Tafshin and Mochanim Erev Shabbos, the laws of cooked dishes that are prepared in Erev Shabbos to be finished on Shabbos. The Machaber says, even though raw meat can be left on the fire, that's shehiyah. Hani midli b'kder, that's only if it's in a pot. Aval b'tzoli she'etzel ha'esh, but if it's roast meat that is near the fire, the Magen Avram adds, the reason he says she'etzel ha'esh, that is near the fire, is to exclude tzli keder. Mamish near the fire, nothing in between. If there would be even a pan in between, then it would have the same halacha as a tafshil, as a cooked dish, that raw meat would be okay. You're not allowed to put it down near dark. Shemar is bashal because it cooks quickly. And therefore he is going to stoke the coals. That is only if it is meat of an ox or a goat. Meaning to say an adult goat, right? That's an A's. But a goat, a kid goat, or a bird, chicken, in other words. This is more practical. I don't know. Can't remember if I ever ate goat meat. I don't think so. I've had lamb, but never goat. But in any case, chicken is practical. Chicken has the same halacha as kid goat because it's basically easy to cook and could easily burn because it's more tender. Shehem menutachem le'evar is an interesting point that I forgot to mention. That is cut up in pieces, meaning to say the leniency that we give to kid goats and now we're giving to chicken also only applies if it's cut up, because if it's whole, so then it's not going to burn so quickly, and the change in temperature is not going to affect it so much. So we wouldn't give it this leniency.
Does it have to actually be cut, or can it be like poked with holes or like mixed slits?
No, I don't think so. I think that's not actually be cut.
Be separated.
Yeah, because the slits are not going to make it burn that quickly. You know what I mean? They'll let the air in and the juices out, but it's not going to make it burn. What makes it burn is if it's pieces and
Smaller
it's
pieces.
tender meat.
How big are pieces?
Oh, I don't know. Avarim,
Little,
cut up to
I
limbs.
thought it's going to say that as long as it's, no, doesn't sound like it. I remember with the poultry, it said as long as its head and feet are cut off, no?
No, I think it says on the contrary. That's not enough.
Oh, that's not.
That's not going to
That's whole.
change. That's
Oh,
still
no,
whole.
you're right.
I think it says the
That's still-
opposite,
Even
yeah.
though it doesn't have the head and feet, it's still considered whole.
Exactly. The word of the Machaber is le'evar, to its limbs, which makes it sound like, the chest and the leg and the arm, you know what I mean? That's what it sounds like to me, but I'm not 100% sure. Mutter is permissible. We're not concerned that he's going to stoke it. Because if he stokes the coals, it is going to it's going to char the flesh. Because it only needs the heat. Doesn't need any extra flames. Notice this is the Rambam's opinion, which would mean that according to the Machaber, this heter would apply even on an open flame, not in an oven. Because it's not about the change in temperature of an open versus a closed oven. It's about the fact that it's tender meat and it needs just a steady flame, steady heat. It doesn't need any sudden changes which would ruin it. Ve'emu betanor, v'toch piv betit. Now, if it's in an oven with the mouth smeared closed, bein gediva oif shleimin, bein besar shor oy eiz mutter. Whether it is a whole kid goat or a bird, or whether it's the meat of an ox or a goat, mutter, it's all permissible. We're not afraid that he's going to stoke it. Because if he would come to open the oven and stoke, the wind would get in and the oven would cool down, and the meat would get hard from that change in temperature, and would get ruined. Again, he's going with the Rambam, that the smearing would cause a change in temperature. Not like the Rashi, that the smearing is to remind you not to do. Okay? All right. Here goes the Ramah. Vein chiluk bazeh, beinu machal legamri in a special kitzas. Now, the Ramah at first is not arguing with the Machaber, he's explaining. And he's saying that regarding everything that we've discussed until now, there is no difference whether it is raw or partially cooked. Makes no difference. The fact is, until it's half cooked, according to Chananya, or fully cooked, according to the Chachamim, we have a problem, right? The only thing is, the only chiddush of this is that the fact that it's raw doesn't help. But whether it's raw or partially cooked makes no difference. And if it's a case that's not allowed, meaning to say it's regular meat and it's not in a sealed oven, it's going to be a problem. Oh, here it is. As long as the cavity of the body is complete. That means the chest cavity. Even though the head and the feet are not on it, mikri shalem, it is called whole. So there you have it.
What's cut in half?
Sorry?
What was just cut?
No, then it's already whole. Then it's already cut, it sounds like. Chalal aguf shalem. The cavity has to be whole. Sounds like if it would be a split open cavity, even if it's not actually cut end to end, just split the cavity, it sounds like it would already be considered, pieces. Everyone, that's what it sounds like. I'm not 100% sure. Again, I didn't see this clearly, but that's what it sounds like. Yesh machmir v'soivrim. Okay, now the Ramah is going to quote Rashi's opinion, and he quotes it as a yesh machmir, which is interesting because Rashi is mekel in one case and he's machmir in two. But the Ramah just says blanket machmirim, but the Mishnah Berurah explains that he means regarding that case, that's a chumrah, but in one case it's going to be a kula. So, the betanor tuach betit hakoil shar. First of all, chiddush number one is that according to Rashi, if it's a oven that is smeared closed, everything is permissible. That means according to the Rambam, that it's about the change in temperature, it's only mutter for a piece of meat. But it would not be mutter for a pot if you would be cooking a pot in an oven, because the pot kind of protects the food inside it from the sudden change in temperature. So according to the Rambam, if that pot was, not fully cooked, you know what I mean? Raw would be okay, but if it was not fully cooked, according to the Rambam, that would be a problem in a smeared closed oven. According to Rashi, it's no problem, because the point of the smearing is that it reminds you, and it reminds you no matter what's in there. Sorry?
So why is it a problem?
According to who?
You said that it was a problem.
According to the Rambam, the point of the smearing the oven is that it will change the temperature, and even tough meat would get ruined by that change, but it would not ruin food that was in a pot, because the pot kind of maintains the temperature of what it contains better, and therefore, according to the Rambam, a smeared oven would not help you if the food in the pot was not fully cooked, and so on, according to the Rambam's guidelines. But according to Rashi, that the point of smearing the oven closed reminds you that you're not going to stoke, because by the time you break it open, you're going to remember it's Shabbos. So according to that, no matter what you put in the oven, it's okay. Okay? Okay, no questions right now. I don't literally mean you have to ask questions. I just mean to make sure you guys are awake. All right. So the point is, here comes the chumrah of Rashi. If it is on a uncovered fire, everything is forbidden. What does he mean, everything? That means even a kid goat. According to the Rambam, on an uncovered fire, a kid goat is permissible because it's tender meat that would get ruined just by the stoking. According to Rashi, no. It would only get ruined because of the change of the temperature from opening an oven. But if it's on an open flame, where that's not going to happen, then the stoking itself will not ruin it, and therefore it's forbidden according to Rashi.
What's the difference? What's the difference between this case and what we just read? Wasn't it on the fire before?
Before we were talking about on a fire in an oven, and now they're almost talking about on a fire outside an oven, like a barbecue pit.
Oh, okay. An open, yeah,
So
it's in a barbecue pit. It's not sealed.
Not sealed, not even closed, open.
Yeah. Okay.
So according to the reasoning of the Rambam, that would be allowed, according to the previous opinion, because the change just from the stoking would ruin that meat. Talking about goat meat, kid goat meat. And now the Rambam is quoting the opinion of Rashi that says, no, that it's only when it's in an oven, even if it's not sealed, but the change in temperature would ruin it, therefore you wouldn't stoke it. But on an open flame, where there would be no temperature change other than the stoking itself, that is not going to ruin it, and therefore that is forbidden. If the oven is covered but not smeared with mud, that's when we differentiate, only in an oven. As we explained, and this is the minhag, like this opinion. All right, my friends, with no further ado, we are going to go to the Alter Rebbe.
So what's the difference between an oven that's smeared or just covered? I mean, if it's still, the opening is still closed.
Exactly. The difference is that smeared creates a seal, so the oven gets very hot. And not smeared, even though it's closed, it does let some air in, so it does not get very hot. And the practical difference...
Okay, it's not as hot. Okay.
Not as hot, exactly. The practical difference between those two is that in the case of a... I take it back. That's the difference according to the Rambam. According to Rashi, the purpose of the smearing is that it reminds you, the purpose, of course, is to keep the heat in. That's what you're doing. But in terms of this discussion, what it accomplishes is that by the time you break it open, you remember it's Shabbos and you won't stoke.
Okay.
So in terms of practicality, according to both opinions, if the oven is sealed, you can leave any meat inside of it. And the reason, according to the Rambam, is because any meat would be ruined by the tremendous change from a sealed oven to an open oven. That change in temperature would be so significant that it would ruin any meat, and therefore it's allowed. According to Rashi, the reason it's allowed is because by the time you break it open, you're going to remember that it's Shabbos. And the one case that there would be a difference between Rashi and the Rambam is if you have a pot cooking in the oven. According to the Rambam, that's a problem, because that temperature change would not affect the pot greatly. But according to Rashi, it's okay because in any case, you would remember by the time you broke it open that it's Shabbos and you wouldn't stoke. And therefore, that would be okay according to Rashi.
The case with the pot is just the meat laid in the pot.
Sorry?
The case with the pot is just the meat laid in the pot.
No, could be meat, could be other stuff too, could be cholent, anything. Once there's a pot there, so all of these changes in temperatures are not going to affect. On the other hand, conversely, if you have raw meat in there and it's in a pot, so then it's okay because it takes longer to cook. Okay. Notice, by the way, that there was no opinion quoted in either the Machaber or the Ramah that permits regular meat in a closed oven. Everybody says it has to be a sealed oven, which is basically the opinion of Rav Yirmiyah from the Gemara that I quoted before. None of them paskin like Rav Ashi, but as we're going to see in the Magen Avram, B'di Eved, we can rely on the Rishonim that do paskin like Rav Ashi, because we've had in the past that even if you cannot rely on an opinion in the first place, after the fact you can rely on it to be able to benefit. We've had that concept in the past. Okay, let us move over to the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe is basically going to go with the Ramah, which is the Halacha for Ashkenazim. He's going to add some details. And he's also going to add the Magen Avram that I mentioned to you outside, but we never read it inside. So here goes. Kavar Nesbor b'Siman Reish Nun Gimel. We've already explained in section 253 that you're allowed to leave raw meat even, right before dark, even in a oven that is not covered, nor have the coals been removed. When we say this, if it's in a pot, so it does not cook very quickly, and therefore he forgets about it till the next day. And certainly by the time the next day comes around, it can cook without being stoked. The same thing applies to a roast that is roasting in a pan. But if it is roast meat that is near the coals or directly on top of the coals, you are not allowed to leave it there. Even if it is raw. Even if it's in an oven, which you covered, and we're not talking about kid goat meat yet. We'll talk about it later. We're talking about standard meat. Even in a covered oven, because roast that is not in a pot, therefore has nothing interrupting between the end and the coals, cooks quickly, and it could finish in such a way that it's ready for the nighttime meal. There's a fear that he might forget that it's Shabbos and remove the cover of the oven. And he will stoke the coals to finish the roasting. Unless he smeared it with mud around the cover. Now, what's the chiddush of that? What's the reason for that? And now he's going to quote Rashi's reasoning. Then we are not concerned that he'll forget that he will be bothered so much to break it open and not remember that it's Shabbos. Therefore, you're allowed to leave inside of it. Here's the chiddush. Whether it's roast on top of the coals, or it is being cooked in a pot like the Ramah, that will remind you. Or if it's fully raw. Or whether it's partially cooked. It's mutter. There is no forbidden thing that you could possibly leave in an oven that is smeared closed. Because whatever it is in there, by the time you break open the oven, you remember it's Shabbos. So therefore it's okay.
Why doesn't he start off with the meats like we did everywhere else? He's not saying that we're talking about opening it to ruin meat. That was the premise.
No, he's not going with the opinion that the opening is going to ruin it. That was the Rambam's opinion. He's going with the Rashi's opinion that whether it will ruin it or not, it's permissible for a different reason. It's permissible because you'll be reminded that it's Shabbos by the time you break it open.
But it doesn't say that a person's just because it's closed.
It's closed and smeared closed in such a way that opening is a big deal. I honestly don't know how big of a deal it is, but it's a deal. You have to use tools and you have to open it up and it takes some time. Okay. V'chol zeh. Now we get into some detail. V'chol zeh b'v'sar shor ve'ezoi ayil godol. All of this applies to an ox, goats, large rams, or similar types of meat whose meat is tough. And he translates ruach as currents of air. Literally, it's a wind, but it's not a wind per se, but it's new air coming in, cold air. But when it comes to kid goat meat or chicken or similar things from the types that are soft and the wind currents will ruin them, you're allowed to roast it on the coals or near them inside a covered oven, even though it is not smeared closed. This is again following Rashi's opinion that this is only permissible in an oven, in which case opening it would change the temperature and damage it. Whether it's totally raw or it started to cook, because he is for sure not going to open up the oven and stoke the coals because the wind current is going to ruin the meat. Remember when we say this, only if they are cut up, whether the kid goat or the chicken. But if they are complete, so then the wind current is not going to, the air current is not going to ruin them. Then they are the same as ox or regular goat meat. As long as the cavity of the body is whole, even though it doesn't have the head and the feet, it's called whole for this purpose. Because the ribs protect it from the inside so that it should not be damaged by the air currents. Nevertheless, now the Alter points out, those that pass like Hananya have no problem with any of these cases as long as it's been cooked before Shabbos on both sides. Notice how he says on both sides. We didn't mention that until now. Until now, Reish and Gimel, we're talking about a pot. So there's no sides of a pot. It's either edible for the bandit or it's not. When it comes to roasting meat on a fire, you have to turn it over. In order for it to be permissible using the principle of Kamachal Ben Rusoy, you have to make sure that both sides are edible for this bandit or whoever might be like him, because otherwise you might be nervous about the other side and you might stoke it for the other side.
Saying that both sides mean like for the pieces, nobody is whole, no?
Yeah, either one. Yeah, if it's whole, you still probably turn it. I mean, I've never really seen a whole animal being barbecued, but I mean, they do it on the shawarma. They certainly turn it there. So then it's permissible. Even if it is the meat of a shor ve'ez, even if it's outside of the oven on the coals, where you might say, well, it's outside of the oven, there's nothing reminding you at all. Mamish, the coals are right there. There's nothing stopping you. There's not even an oven. There's certainly not a cover. It's just an open barbecue pit. Makes no difference. Because it's already practically ready to eat. So the fact that it's easy to stoke is not a reason to be strict, because you have no reason to stoke. Okay. Now we have a chiddush right here. This is a chiddush that we didn't see in the Mechaber Rama. Va'af leha oisrim lahashois kedera bekira shein negufo ktuma kol zman shemestamik v'yafaloi. Yikamakom betzoli shemunach agabe gechol hamamish moedem hem shemuter kishnistam kamacham anusoyim v'odyam dekeven shigam macham anusoyim yichata b'kechol yafal chabasa. We had in 253 many times, we mentioned again and again the machlokes Chananya and the Chachamim. And we know according to the Chachamim, which is how the Mechaber paskins, until a food item is fully cooked and burning, basically, or at least getting worse, you cannot leave it in a shahiyah situation because we're still concerned that you might soak it. Now we have a chiddush. If you have meat that is directly on the coals, I don't think it means touching the coals, but directly on top of it. Let me see how he translates it here. Directly on the coals. I don't think he means touching it necessarily, but directly on top of it. So, as long as it's k'maychal ben drusoi, either a third or half cooked, you can leave it there even according to the chachamim. Why? Because it's directly on the coals and it's already that amount cooked. Stoking the fire is going to cook it too much. It's going to burn it, basically. And therefore it's permissible even according to them.
Well, even we're never scared if it's half cooked.
No, that's the Chananya.
Yeah, according to that.
I understand, but here's the chiddush. Even those that passing like the Chachamim, or even the Chachamim themselves,
50% would already get it.
would agree that 50% makes it mutter in this case because you would burn it if you would cook it too much directly on the coals. So that's a chiddush we're learning here. Who is this from? This is from the Maggid Mishnah. Yeah, Maggid Mishnah seems to be the chiddush of the Maggid Mishnah. Okay, however, if it is a roast, but it's not directly on the coals, you're not allowed to leave it there. Unless it was cooked to the extent that it's already burning. According to the opinion that says that you have to have that stage in order to leave a pot on the fire, he would say the same thing here if it's not directly on top of the coals. We've already explained it there. The minhag is like the lenient opinion. To leave a pot as long as it is cooked like Michael ben Drusoi, based on this, you're allowed to leave meat that is roasting on the fire if it's half cooked, even if it's out of the oven, whether it's directly on the coals or not. In any case, once it's half cooked, it's permissible. There's no question that once it's half cooked, it's permissible. Maybe once it's half cooked, it's also permissible according to the Chachamim. That's if it's directly on the coals. But according to the Chananya, half cooked is there's nothing to worry about in any case. Okay, here's Ronnie. Here's what you were asking before. But you have to wait to remove it from on top of the coals until after they go out, so that they are not extinguished when you remove the meat from them. Sorry? No, there's still heat coming up from the lower layer. There's lower coals that might have heat in them. It's the top level of the coals that you want to be out. Because one second, I just want to explain. Because basically the juice of the meat, as you lift it up, is going to drip down. And if that level of coals is still burning, it's going to put them out. The lower level is not going to affect. Yes?
You answered my question.
Okay. He should not extinguish anything when he removes the meat. It's not like a pot that he could remove from the coals like we explained before. The truth is that we explained before that removing a pot from on top of coals, you have to do it very carefully. And certainly if there are coals around it, you can't do it yourself, you have to do it with a guy. But if it's directly on top, you can very carefully pick it up. But that's different. When you remove a pot, it does not extinguish them. However, the meat will extinguish them somewhat with the juices that drip down when you remove it. So therefore, you can only pick it up if that level of coals has already died down.
How did the Chachamim go against that? It seems like such a tricky thing.
Against?
So easy against having it on open flame. seems like such a tricky.
Because you would remove it before it probably burned out completely. If you left it there until the coal was technically burned out, that it can be dry and that it will.
But that's what we're saying, though, we have to stay there until it goes
You're talking about by this case or by pot?
dies.
Yeah, but it's good. So you leave the food until it's
I mean,
gone, it's out.
there is another option, by the way. You could also let it have a goy remove it, because that's still psikresha de go, right? The whole issue is it's not a direct action; it's an indirect action. So
You're worried about the food being removed before it goes out 100%.
well, yeah, we're worried about the coals being extinguished by the drippings when he removes it before the 100%.
That makes sense. No one wants the food to burn 100% before it's 100%.
Well, burning or not, we're not saying it's burning. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But he's saying it's an issue with extinguishing the coals. Hopefully, he practiced it enough times to make sure it doesn't burn and put it on the right position, the right amount of coals. I don't know exactly. I mean, we have.
My question hasn't really.
Yeah, the general guideline is that the Chachamim have to tread a fine line. I shouldn't say have to. They do. The Chachamim tread a fine line. On the one hand, they want you to enjoy Shabbos with hot food. They don't want you to be a Karaite and eat cold food in a dark house. They want you to enjoy Shabbos. At the same time, they want you to be careful about the halachas of Shabbos. So we have all these fine lines that we're drawing, saying this yes, this not, this yes, this not. And they drew the line where they felt it was appropriate, but they didn't want to make it too difficult because they wanted you to be able to have a barbecue if you want.
Yeah. According to, sorry to digress, if it's too much of a digression, please tell me. According to Tosfos, they are not allowed to have any of your things, objects, do malacha.
Beis Shammai.
Oh, and you're
Not
right.
Tosfos. Nobody passes like Beis Shammai.
Shammai. According to Shammai and Beis Shammai.
Beis Shammai.
Obviously, Shammai, Beis Shammai, all Beis Shammai. Was it a focus? Shammai, Beis Shammai? Or?
Beis Shammai.
Beis Shammai. Okay, so Beis Shammai, they would hold that when a person's cooking for Shabbos, they would have to mafkir, you have said everything beforehand.
The pot, the oven, yeah.
And
It's on the same page as Gemara, actually. I just came across it today when I was looking at this Gemara. Yud Ches Amud Beis.
so they would hold everything has to, and that would be a procedure, and they'd have to gain it back when.
I mean, when they eat it, they're getting it back. I mean, if you eat hefker, you pick it up, it becomes yours. You don't have to own your chalent. It's not like a lulav, but it's automatic.
Do you have to? Can you just do that once? Okay, whatever. It's getting complicated.
Can you make it tonight
Can you
before?
do it once a
I don't
year,
know.
like once a year, it's hefker, whatever.
I don't know. I don't see why not, but I don't know. We don't pass like Bisham anyway, so I'm not really sure.
No, you're saying the pot. You have to.
No, the pot and the oven. Oh, you're saying about the food also? You have to make the food. The pot is already in the world and the oven is, but the coals are not. I mean, which coals are you going to use? I don't know. All right, my friends. Gimel. Avar vehisha. Soli shalin misla kamach ben resoy b'makom trasel lahashois. Ben reshogi ben memezid also ben loy ben lachem at shal motzei Shabbos b'dei sheyasa. This is a concept that we came across in 253 as well, and it's practically a repetition, except for what we're going to learn in a moment. But the first thing we learn is that if you left a roast in a position that it was not allowed to be left, whether it was on purpose or by accident, it is forbidden until after Shabbos, both for him and for others, plus the amount of time it took to cook that thing. The concept of bichdei sheyasa, a special chumrah that we apply specifically to prohibitions of shehiyah and hatmana, chazor for that matter, or amir la'akum, like we said, does not apply to other Shabbos violations.
When you said even beforehand, the shogeg you have to.
Yeah.
Even shogeg in the
Yeah.
regular case,
Yeah.
Even shogeg ben amazed, if they sheyas.
Yeah, the Chacham were concerned that otherwise a person might do it and say it was a shogeg.
So this is where he did not seal the oven in this case. Is that? I was talking about.
Exactly. If he had sealed the oven, it would be permissible.
Okay.
So not seal the oven. And the truth is that the very next case is going to say, even if it was an unsealed but closed oven, we could let him buy after the fact. After it's done already, we would let him benefit because there is an opinion that permits it, even though we didn't know that opinion here, but in the Gemara there's an opinion that permits it, so we're going to let it slide once it's done already. So in the end, we're going to limit this to a case that it was in an open oven, literally an open oven, or a barbecue pit.
If it was
We're going to learn that
raw,
right now.
if it was raw,
Raw doesn't help for.
wouldn't help for this.
Yeah. Nobody says that raw helps for meat directly on the fire.
Okay.
So even though we're going to see now that we can be lenient based on singular opinions and whatever, even though they're not the main halacha, but nobody holds that raw helps for this. Okay, mikol makom. Nevertheless, if you left it in a covered oven, even if it was not smeared closed, we can be lenient after the fact, even if it was ox or goat meat, because some permitted even in the first place. That opinion is not concerned that he may uncover the oven in order to stoke. If you remember, that is the opinion of Rav Ashi in the Gemara. And we said the Sefer HaTruma, the Smag, and the Smak, and I believe also the Mordechai all agree and pass like Rav Ashi. And they say that a closed oven is enough of a reminder. Just the fact that it's closed is enough. And one second, we can rely on their opinion b'diavad, like we've had in the past, that even though we forbid something, but when it comes to benefiting from that work, which is only a derabanan concept, we can rely on opinions that are not the main halacha. Yes?
Yeah, there's no sort of between pieces and whole.
No. No. The whole difference between pieces and whole is only for kid goat, that a whole kid goat is treated the same as a regular, bigger animal. But here we're saying even a regular bigger animal would be allowed in a closed oven according to this opinion, and we can allow it in b'diavad. So therefore, a kid goat that is whole is the same as that, basically, that would be allowed in a closed oven according to this opinion, and therefore b'diavad we can rely on it.
The rule that Rav mentioned once, that anything that is mutter by other poskim or a posik, then we can rely on the b'diavad. Is that only when that posik said it's okay to chila or even b'diavad?
I think it's on lechatchila. If some poskim allow it lechatchila, we can rely on them b'diavad. The fact that some poskim say it's b'diavad mutter, and some poskim say it's b'diavad aser, doesn't mean we can rely on the poskim that's a direct machlokes. There's a machlokes. Some say mutter, some say aser. Well, we have to pass one way or the other. Here we're saying.
What if people say it's aser? No b'diavad, it's aser. Saying it doesn't have to be b'diavad aser.
That's what we're saying. One more time.
You know what I'm saying? Saying it doesn't have to be that something. Let's say majority of the poskim say everyone says aser. And then another opinion says b'diavad, only b'diavad it's aser.
Only b'diavad is aser? What does that mean? Only b'diavad is aser. Even b'diavad is aser.
Even b'diavad? Think about case
Okay. Actually, we did have the Alter Rebbe say before that this rule only applies if it's a Derabanan issue. By a Daraisa, the Alter Rebbe was not sure. He had it in parentheses. He wasn't sure about it. In other words, if the prohibition would have been a Daraisa prohibition, then it could be we would be strict even b'diavad. Over here, the whole issue of closed oven, open oven, but all of this is only a Derabanan. And the Daraisa, Alter Rebbe remains with a doubt.
Is there any other Chabad Rebbe that spoke about it, clarified the issue?
No, not that I know. The Mishnah Berurah paskins Lakula on that, and I saw there's also Bavad Yosef also that even by Daraisa you could rely on the B'diavad, on those that say this. But you could rely on the B'diavad. but I didn't see in Chabad any
Every Chabad, that's right. Smart.
halachas for him.
Because you said Halacha Chabad, and they go like.
Not everyone, no, not
What
everyone.
was this? What was the middle Rebbe's name?
There were seven, but the one who wrote most halachas for him after the Alter Rebbe was the Tzemach Tzedek,
That's how said it. So
his grandson. So there are many issues that he did disagree with his grandfather, and the halachas like him. After that, I mean, there are Rabbeim who wrote, but not as much as him. I mean,
The Rebbe didn't.
every Rebbe wrote something, but not as much as him.
But the Rebbe didn't really paskin on halacha as much, did he?
I mean, the Rebbe spoke a lot in halacha and wrote a lot in halacha in terms of letters. So we do have a lot from him, although he didn't act as a Rav Lamaisa. I mean, if you asked him a shayla on
That's
a
what I was
chicken
gonna say,
or
so-
whatever, he would send you to the Rav. But he did write a lot
But
over the years.
from what he wrote, we wouldn't look at that as a follow-up to
Sorry.
more contemporary halachas
Yeah,
of
certainly.
the Alter Rebbe, for example.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, what
He
he
was
said.
dealing with American, more modern issues, that's what I'm saying, although.
That too.
maybe they never argued after the Tzemach Tzedek.
I'm sure
The
that.
Tzemach Tzedek was the third Rosh, right?
Third, yeah.
So anyone from the fourth to the seventh argued on the Tzemach Tzedek. Because the Rebbe just said the Tzemach Tzedek argued about Tanakh. It's not.
Yeah.
I thought he was just coming to thoroughly explain.
No, sometimes there were arguments. Sometimes it would be unusual for a later Rebbe to argue on the Alter Rebbe. What might happen is that there might be a minhag that is recorded by a later Rebbe that does go against the Alter Rebbe. That's not unusual because sometimes maybe things that were not so accepted, they were maybe all Kabbalah, and then they became like the minhag based on the Kabbalah, and that kind of the later minhag over superseded that kind of thing. But to argue on the Alter Rebbe would be unusual. I'm not going to say it never happened after the Tzemach Tzedek, but it would be unusual. Okay, so let us continue. V'chein im hishe b'sar gedi menutach. Okay, actually, the rest of Siv Gimel touches on something that the Machaber discusses in Siv Beis, which we didn't learn yet in the Machaber, but I'm going to read it first in the Alter Rebbe, then we'll go back to the Machaber and catch up on that. Listen to this. If he left the meat of a kid goat that was cut up next to the coals, but not directly on the coals.
Next, not even above.
Not directly above, no, next to it. Whether in the oven, which is open, not a closed oven, or outside of the oven in a barbecue pit, you can allow it b'diyavad. There are some people who allow it even in the first place. Who are these people? Who allows a kid goat on a open flame, even outside of an oven, or in an open oven, literally open? Who allows it? Rambam, which is at the Machaber Paskas, exactly. Because they say that since the meat is tender, if he would stoke the coals, it would burn the meat, because this meat only needs the heat of the fire, does not need any extra heat. So we can rely on that opinion b'diavad, even though the Ramah doesn't pass like it lechatchila, we can rely on it b'diavad. Okay, aval. Actually, that we already mentioned in the Machaber. Here's the next bit. Aval agabe agochal mamish, but directly on top of the coals. This is something we mentioned in the Gemara. Afilu b'sargadi, even goat meat, kid goat meat, also the record is forbidden according to everybody. Afilu b'diavad and b'diavad. Unless it was cooked to the level of Macham Soy, like halfway, while it was still day. Here's the concept: because he put it actually on top of the coals, He obviously doesn't care about the fact that it might burn. All he cares is that he wants it ready quickly. He'd rather have char, cold chicken, or whatever, than raw chicken. So since that's the case, we are concerned that he might stoke it, because that charring it is not an issue for him. But if it was already cooked that amount, now that it's already cooked halfway, so you'll say, well, it's already ruined. He may as well ruin it more. No, why should he ruin it? It's already edible, so he's not going to ruin it more for no reason. And therefore, it is permissible, even according to those that forbid something that's by a pot, like the Chachamim, they would allow it if it's directly on the coals. All right, my friends. With no further ado, let us learn Seif Beis. And in the Mechaber, or should we go do the chart first? Let's do the chart first, if you don't mind.
If you've been marinating something,
Yep.
does that count to get you to the machal ben drusai? Like you put a lot of salt on it, and it's like almost kind of preserved, and then you throw it on the grill.
Only if it's edible b'shas chak. We're going to see in the very next seif in the Alter Rebbe, and coming up in the Mechaber, we're going to see that raw fruit has the din of machal ben drusai. So it's not about being cooked per se. It's about whether it's edible as it is or not. So that's the question I would ask you. The fact that it's marinated makes it softer, but does it actually make it edible is the question. If yes, then yes. Then it's the same as machal ben drusai. If not, then not. All right, my friends. I don't think anybody has the chart, so why am I even... You have the chart. All right. Here goes. You do have it? It's on the second page. Second page. It's 2 pages in the handout. Got it?
Yeah, everybody does it.
Okay. Ram. Let's start with the ram or ox, raw or less than machal ben drusai. So let's just go through the opinions. Covered oven. Covered oven is forbidden both according to the Mechaber and according to the Ramah. Yes? Because we paskin like of Yirmiyah that says that covered oven is forbidden. The only thing is, the Magen Avraham says that b'diavad it will be permissible based on the place in the passing like Avashi, and they say even a covered oven would get somewhat ruined if you would open it, or maybe like we said, the covering itself reminds you, so you're not going to stoke it. So we're not going to allow you to do that in the first place, but b'diavad will let you eat it if you did that.
What's the difference between this oven and the oven we dealt with in the last Siman?
The only difference is that the contents are different. In the last Siman, we only spoke about a pot. We never spoke about food being roasted outside of a pot. And second of all, over here, we're talking about a covered oven, as opposed to the last one, which it was. We never discussed it being covered. We discussed you put a pot on it or in it, but we never had the concept of covering it. So it seems like that was something they did more for meat than for pots for some reason. They wanted it to be hotter, so that's why we're discussing on that.
So this covering an oven is not applicable today at all?
Is covering an oven applicable today at all? Well, let's put it this way. You mean if you have a barbecue? Let's say you have a barbecue and you have a cover on that barbecue and you cover it and then you put in chicken. That's fairly standard. You put chicken wings in your barbecue right before Shabbos, and they are either raw or less than Michael Bender soy. That's exactly the case which should be.
That'd be on the fire.
Is that like the top of the barbecue grill? You close it?
So exactly, that's what I'm discussing. Close the barbecue grill. Should be okay, no?
No, you can still raise the temperature, lower the temperature. Unless you specifically use coals.
Yeah, but you're not going to want to do that because you're not going to want to let in the air and ruin the chicken. As I'm saying that, I'm thinking to myself, I mean, people do that all the time.
Yeah.
Which leads me to one of the notes that he does say here, which I honestly didn't see it in the Mefarshim, so I don't know who says it, but logically it makes sense. He basically says in number 10, the above refers to outdoor ovens where wind could cool them and adversely affect certain types of meat. Presently, when ovens are located inside homes or buildings, this leniency does not apply. And the truth is, it's hard for me to apply it, to understand how it applies even outside. I mean, we don't see, when we're barbecuing our chicken, we don't see any effect of opening that. I mean, you open it, close it, I mean, back and forth, flip it. I personally haven't seen in my vast years of barbecue experience, I haven't really seen that it's a problem to open a barbecue cover. You know, I've never seen it to be a problem. I don't know. I mean, without this note number 10, I would say that
Well, what about if
it should be permissible.
What if you poke the food? Back then, they didn't really have utensils like we did now.
To poke the food, you could poke the food then. I could poke the food then. They could certainly poke the food. I mean, that is what it is. They knew how to cook. You ask a good question. Your question is basically, is there anything relevant from everything that we've been learning? That's what you want to know.
I didn't say it like that.
Other than the way we started the shear, which was that the heter of raw meat does not apply to barbecue. That's the one thing that I take from all of this. In terms of and another thing that according to Rashi, we said a smeared closed oven helps for everything. So the poskim discuss whether you can lock an oven, the cover to an oven, and maybe that would make it allowed, because by the time you find the key and open it, that would remind you. No, I'm serious. That is something that we could apply even today. If you lock it, the argument is made, well, maybe locking it is not enough because unlocking it is easier than breaking open an oven. Okay, so let's say you unlock it and let's say you lock it and you put the key, I don't know, in a high place. I'm saying, if you do something that would take a significant amount of time to allow you to open it, the argument can be made that maybe it should be allowed.
But what does that do? Everything is controlled outside our oven, in our oven. Even in our barbecues, everything's outside.
That's what I'm saying. No, the controls are under lock and key, not just the opening to the oven. The controls are under lock and key.
No, it would be digital. You can't use that anyways.
Or you need a code. To get to the code, you need another code. And then they have to email it to you. No, that wouldn't help. Anyway.
This only applies to old school coals, it seems like, nothing else. Burners, gas, everything else. You can't.
You can't what?
It wouldn't be a sense to open it, because you can control it from the outside. Unless you took the knobs off.
Well, one second.
No, it's harder than you think.
One second. It's not, based on what we're saying here,
we're worried about.
One second. No, it's not just about getting to the coals to stoke them that the opening affects, but it's also about the fact that it changes the temperature inside.
It does, sure.
That's what I'm saying. So we said with tender meat that could get ruined with the change in temperature, we said that it is allowed as long as the oven is covered, even if it's not smeared. So that concept that it will get ruined from a change in temperature, except for note 10, which says that maybe our ovens are different. Other than that, you could argue that it would apply even though the knobs are controlled outside of it. Oh, but you're saying, you don't have to. Oh, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. That's a good argument. That's a good argument, actually. In those days, you had to open it to stoke it, and you wouldn't open it because you would ruin it. Nowadays, when you don't have to open it to stoke it, so you could stoke it without ruining it, so it should be a problem anyway. This is a valid point.
Does this apply to be using coals? If using gas, yes. But using coals.
If you're using actual coals, yeah.
Yeah, that's the purpose of
Barbecue chips and whatever they use.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Something to think about. Definitely something to think about.
You mean you stoke it from the bottom? Like you?
No, he's saying if you have a gas barbecue where you stoke it by basically, just turning the knobs. So why would the fact that opening it would ruin it change the fact that you might stoke it? Because you could stoke it without opening it.
You can see it too.
All right, I got to make a note of this question.
It's pretty practical because I once camped out over Shabbos.
Yeah, let's hear.
We made a barbecue before Shabbos, and we accepted Shabbos early and ate it. But it was hot dogs, so I'm guessing because they can be eaten raw, it was already machal ben drasai.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Sounds right.
So I'm just saying it happened once.
A raw hot dog, but I've heard that you can.
I think those hot dogs come.
They're
Don't they come pre-cooked?
Yeah, it's those are pre-cooked. In front, some people they put them like in hot water.
Hot dogs not good for you with too much sodium.
All right, that takes care of that. Get it off the menu.
That never stopped anybody.
That's true.
All right, that's definitely something to think about. Okay. Ram or ox, raw or less than machal ben drasai in a smeared oven is forbidden according to the Machaber. Is that right? No, that's not right. No, that's not right. Got to change that. Permissible. Mutter. Right? That's permissible. Yes? I'm in the chart, ram or ox in a smeared oven. I wrote that according to the Machaber, it's aser, but in fact, it's mutter. That's what we said. The Machaber says that clearly. I must have been asleep when I wrote this, but the Machaber says,
What?
one second. The Mubatana v'tach piv betit, bein gedi oif shleimim, bein b'sar shaya is mutter. All right. Strike that from the record. Smeared oven is mutter. All right. According to Ramah, it's certainly mutter. Now, on coals, it's also according to everybody. On or near coals, also according to everybody. Everybody agrees with that? There's no reason why not. It's not kamachal ben drasai, and there's no reason to be lenient, even if it's raw. There's no reason to be lenient because it cooks quickly. Yes? Question? No. Okay, kid goat that is cut up, raw or less than machman or soy. Okay, covered oven. According to the Mechaber is what?
Why put the near the coals also?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. I just need to.
Where? For Ram or Ox?
In the middle.
For Ram or Ox?
Yeah.
Because it is.
Near?
Yeah.
Why?
Why not?
If you stoke
the way with
the
the-
coals, how does it really affect it? It's
What
near.
Erev was talking about.
If you were to move it away, juices would have gone on it. I mean, what's the big deal of keeping raw meat near the fire? We already discussed that raw food, like we can't eat it right away anyways.
What is the difference between the ram and the goat next to the goat? According to Dr. Rabbit, it's next. Comes to
One
Masakli.
in the hospital or something.
But they didn't talk about the.
I'm not up to the Gdiyah.
Yeah, but Dr. Rabbit never
Sorry?
Dr. Rabbit never mentioned that, the ram meat next to the goat.
You know, it's not so much that people don't know raw meat, it's the problem that.
Yeah, because it's always usher. It doesn't have to mention it.
Around
It's usher even in an oven where opening it might.
It's in its blood, it's, you know.
There's more reason. One second. There's more reason to be makel in an oven than outside an oven, right? For many reasons. First of all, in an oven, there's a change of temperature when you open it. Second of all, in an oven, you have to open it, so that might remind you. And it's still usher, right, by other meat. So how much more so if it's outside an oven, it's usher. The Alter doesn't even have to say that. It's obvious. I'm sorry?
It's not there, it's Tzviya anyway.
Who said? Barbecues? An open barbecue pit? Why not?
Off the fire.
That's
It's like a
off.
fire, it's not on
It's
fire.
it's close to. Nobody says named there.
Outside.
No, it doesn't. It's not aimed there. Not aimed there. Okay, kid goat that is cut up raw or less than machman rusoy. Covered oven. According to the Mechaber is mutter. And I wrote that according to the Ramah is usher. Am I right, or I think I'm wrong actually? Again, kid goat that is cut up. Raw or less than machman rusoy. Covered oven. According to the Mechaber is mutter. Why? Because it is going to get ruined when you open it up. Actually, it would get ruined if you stoked it. And according to the Ramah, it'll get ruined if you open it up. It's mutter according to the Ramah. I don't know, I wrote this in a rush evidently. Got to change that too. Again, Ramah, kid goat, covered oven is mutter.
So it's not enough that it's closed, it has to be smeared.
No, it's mutter. It's enough that it's closed.
No, you wrote for the next one, smeared, that the Ramah says that it's mutter for.
It's mutter either way. Covered or smeared is both mutter.
Oh, so it's wrong.
Yep, change that. Covered oven is mutter. The only thing is the difference between them. Why? According to the Mechaber, it's mutter because even a stoking would ruin it. According to the Ramah, it's mutter because opening the oven might ruin it. But either way, it's
So
mutter.
if we say that it's mutter, can't we, why even smear it? Why not just put like a chair in front of it or something? Something that.
No, smearing is it's a big effort to open it. A chair is nothing.
But I'm only saying simply because the visual of seeing it close is enough.
It's not the visual, it's the action of opening it that's a big effort. By the time you go through that effort, you'll remember that it's Shabbos.
No, I'm not talking about smear, I'm talking about simply covered up.
The covering of the oven, the reason that it's mutter is either because the opening of a covered oven will ruin the tender goat meat or chicken for that
But I'm
matter.
saying if that's enough, why not just be in the middle, a little bit more machmir, and just put something that you normally wouldn't put on top or around or something?
Why are you looking for chumras?
I'm not, but I'm saying.
Okay, you're
that
not
the-
finished. Next. That's it. Stop right there. I'm not. Next. Smeared oven is for sure mutter, right? Even a covered oven, how much more so a smeared oven? Now, let's skip to near coals before we go to on coals. Near coals, we have a machlokes Machaber and Rama. The Machaber says it's mutter because he's following the Rambam that the stoking would ruin it. So whether it's in an oven or out of an oven, it's permissible because stoking would ruin it, so you wouldn't stoke. According to the Rama, it's aser. According to the Rama, the only reason it's permissible in a covered oven is because opening the oven would ruin it, that change of temperature. But the stoking itself would not. And therefore, if it's not in an oven, it's forbidden according to the Rama. Now, if it's on the coals, then it's forbidden according to both. Why? Because according to the Rama, it's for sure forbidden because there's no change in temperature from inside to outside an oven. But even according to the Mechaber, that it permits it near the coals, would say on the coals it's okay because it's already ruined. It's already burning, and obviously you don't care for it to burn. So therefore you might burn it further as long as it gets ready on time. So that's what's forbidden. All right, now b'diavad, we could rely on the Mechaber, even those that passed in like the Ramah could rely on the Mechaber b'diavad based on what we said.
And then if you wait for the coals to burn out, then both become mutter, correct?
If you wait for the coals to burn out, is only the point of that is to allow you to lift it off. It doesn't make it mutter if it was a forbidden shehiyah. If it's forbidden shehiyah, it's forbidden till after Shabbos. I mean, if it was forbidden according to everybody, then it's forbidden till after Shabbos. But if it's a permissible shehiyah, and you want to remove it from on top of the coals directly, it has to be that the top layer already died out.
According to this, the only machlokes between the Ramad and Mechaber is like just basar hidden to the coal.
No, that's one machlokes, and smeared.
According to the chart, it's all match.
Wait. Oh, you know what? There's something I didn't put in. I got to send you guys a new chart. Got to add a new column. How do I add a new column? Insert column to the right. There we go. The new column is pot.
What?
A pot in a closed but not sealed oven. A pot.
Can we resend it?
Yeah. In a closed but unsealed oven.
Doesn't matter what meat.
Doesn't matter what meat.
Okay.
So according to the Mechaber is what?
Okay.
Forbidden. Because the pot is not going to become ruined when you open the oven. According to the Ramah, it's mutter because by the time you break it open, you'll remember. So those are the two arguments. Sorry?
In a sealed oven, not just covered.
Oh, excuse me, sealed oven. Sealed oven. Sorry, you're right. Sorry. Pot. Sealed oven. Right. Sorry about that. Yep. Thank you. Those are the only two machlokes, and I'll resend this later. It's Hashem together with the other corrections that I made. Thank you very much. Learning from my students and hopefully getting it right. All right. So now that we've clarified that, let's use the last 6 minutes to learn the next seif in the Mechaber, who says in Beis, Ein tzolin batzol ubeitza ubasar agabe gechalim. One may not roast an onion or an egg or meat on top of the coals, unless it is going to be roasted from before Shabbos on both sides, good enough for the bandit to eat.
You can eat raw onions, eat the eggs.
The Alter Rebbe is going to address that, and he's going to say that in order to give you the heter that a raw food is considered kamach ben soy, it's only if it's considered just as good raw and cooked. I mean, it has a different taste. Cooked apples are different. But if it's only edible raw aydeat chak, most people don't eat raw eggs. Most people don't bite into a raw onion. I mean, you might use it in a salad.
Very healthy.
You might use it in a salad, but you don't eat it. You don't eat it, even if you could, but it's not the normal way. So therefore, we're not going to say that you're not going to stoke it because it's edible, because it's not. It's barely edible. See what I'm saying? Alter was going to discuss that. The Mishneh started from both sides. Kamacha ben Rusoi, shehu chatzi usually, which is half of the cooking. The Magen Avraham points out that in Yerodea, the Machaber brings down shlish bishulei, a third of the cooking, like Rashi. Here he says chatzi bishulei, like the Rambam, and that's basically because of the chomer of Shabbos, because the laws of Shabbos are very strict. So bishulakum, which is derabanan, we're going to be mekel. Shabbos, even though this aspect of Shabbos is derabanan, but generally Shabbos is very strict, so that's why he's strict. Afilu b'sar gedi, even if it is kid goat meat, because you put it on top of the coals. His main intent is that it should be cooked quickly, even if it burns. We're afraid that he might stoke it. But when it is roasted halfway, we're not concerned that he's going to stoke. Even if it is ox meat, once it is edible, why would he stoke it and ruin it? Okay, Siv Gimelim Avarai Shachach Lenisel B'Shabbos Be'Isser Aser. If he left it on or forgot, even though it was B'Shoigig, and he left it on, it is forbidden. Siv Dalet, moving right along. Perish and Achalim Chayim. Fruits that are edible raw. Mutter Litnam Saviv Likdeira. You're allowed to put them around a pot. Even though it's impossible for them to roast and be cooked before it gets dark. That's no problem because they're edible. I'm sorry? Either way. Could be either way. Either way.
So if it's not to the oven, it's not a big hot, basically.
Exactly. It's no problem. Even though it's not going to get ready before dark, it's okay because they're edible raw. However, importantly, the Machaber says you have to make sure if, let's say you have them covered. You covered them. No, you covered these fruit. These fruit are cooking, right? And you covered them with a towel or something. It sounds like a forbidden hatmana. So we'll see in Alter why it's not a forbidden hatmana. It could be a forbidden hatmana if it's directly on the fire, but let's say you did it in a permissible way. We're going to see how. Nevertheless, if the cover came off, you can't put it back on because the fruits are cooking. The shehiyah is allowed, but because they're not, in other words, the point is that they're edible, but the fact is when they change from being raw to being cooked, that is considered cooking. Now, what you left on before Shabbos is okay, but if the cover comes off and you put it back on, you're helping it cook faster, that's a problem. And you can't add another layer until they're fully cooked. Because the fact is that it's not really cooked, even though it's edible, but it's not really cooked. And if you do anything to add and help it cook, that's cooking on Shabbos. So that you cannot do. All right, my friends, we will continue tomorrow night in Mirz Hashem.
Does that include vegetables also? And anything similar?
Yes. Absolutely, vegetables are the same. All right, I wish you all a good night. Thank you. For those that were not, Meyer, for those that were not here earlier, by the way, I did mention that I am going away on the day of Gimel Tammuz, which is a Tuesday, the 27th. There will not be a class that day, but I could do a makeup class in advance on Sunday, the 25th at night. We'll discuss that next week. All right, all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
A pleasure.
I'm gonna be away with it.
And